Midnight Confessions, the dark secrets of working night shift at a Montana gas station. The clock struck midnight, shattering the stillness of the dark Montana night. Jake stood behind the counter of the gas station, eyes flickering nervously between the flickering fluorescent lights and the door. There were rumors about this place, strange happenings that sent chills down the spine of anyone brave enough to work the night shift. Weird silhouettes seemed to loiter outside just beyond the edge of the light, and whispers floated through the cold air like ghosts escaping the shadows. Jake felt it, too. The weight of unspoken secrets lurked around every corner. As the clock ticked away, he recalled the stories from his co-workers, how the last employee had vanished without a trace on a stormy Thursday. They found the door wide open, the register untouched, and the only clue was an eerie note scrawled in red lipstick, reading, "They are watching." A shiver ran down Jake's spine. Who were they? The way the gas pumps creaked in the wind felt more like breath alive and waiting. He took a deep breath to steady himself as he heard noises outside, like a rustling whisper. Was it just the wind, or was something watching him from the shadows? These weren't the woods, this was a gas station with cars whizzing by, yet at night it felt utterly isolated. Each passing truck felt like a phantom gliding past, leaving him to wonder what happened when those headlights dimmed. His heart raced when the door swung open with an ominous creak. A cloaked figure entered, silhouetted against the dim light spilling from the neon sign. The bell jingled, echoing through the empty aisles like a sinister laughter. Jake's throat tightened, and he couldn't help but feel that this entrance signaled trouble. The figure lingered, casting a long shadow across the floor, their face obscured, hiding some dark intention that sent Jake's pulse thumping in his ears. Where was the safety of daylight? Suddenly, a loud crack of thunder shattered the silence, and the lights above flickered menacingly. Jake's instincts screamed at him to flee, but his feet were glued to the ground. What should he do? His mind raced through options, but the figure merely looked around, observing the aisles. What were they looking for? For a moment, the air felt electric with tension. Before we continue, I need to give you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the momentary buzz of life returned, Jake's heart still raced. Just as he was about to ask the figure if they needed help, the power flickered one last time and plunged the entire gas station into darkness. Total silence swallowed him whole. Panic gripped his chest, and he fumbled for his phone, praying for a spark of light. But just then, he heard a low whisper right behind him. What did they want? And who were they really? Was the darkness hiding something far more sinister than he could ever imagine? The whisper sent a jolt through Jake, freezing him in place. It was so close, he could almost feel breath on his neck. Gulping hard, he strained to comprehend the words. You shouldn't be here. A chill slid down his spine, and it wasn't just the frigid air slipping through the cracks in the walls. He swung around, heart thundering in his chest, searching for the source. Shadows danced in his peripheral vision, warping the aisles into ghastly shapes. His phone vibrated in his pocket, a weak source of light against the oppressive blackness. He fumbled it out, his fingers trembling as he swiped the screen to illuminate the area. What met his eyes was far from comforting. The cloaked figure stood no more than 5 feet away, their face still shrouded in darkness. The bottom of the cloak fluttered, as if a breeze surged through the store. Who are you? Jake's voice trembled, but he fought to keep it steady, grounding himself in the reality of his words. The figure took a tentative step forward, an unsettling smile forming as the light flickered in and out, distorting their features. Then, the whispers returned, growing in intensity. They come for you. You don't know what you've done. What are you talking about? He felt a deep sense of dread seep into his bones. Had he stumbled upon something far worse than a simple robbery or a customer in distress? Sweat dripped from his brow as he tried to maintain eye contact with this unsettling apparition. The silence of the gas station settled in again, thick as molasses. Then, another crack of thunder roared outside, the lights above sputtering back on just long enough to reveal the cloaked figure's face, a painted mask of horror twisted into a grin. Jake gasped and stepped backward, nearly tripping over the display of chips behind him. "Run!" the voice hissed, echoing with urgency. But before he could process the command, the power flickered again and a shudder rattled through the building. The air thickened, and it felt as if the shadows were creeping closer, coiling around him like tendrils searching for warmth. Jake knew he needed to get out, but dread held him captive. What was waiting for him outside? The figure advanced, the unsettling serenity of their demeanor contrasting sharply with the frantic tempo of his pulse. "You have to leave now." They moved closer, and the weight of their warnings pressed down on Jake. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from behind, breaking through the tension like glass shattering. The door he had secured earlier burst open, slamming violently against the wall. A figure staggered in, drenched and wild-eyed, his coworker, Mark, panting and frightened. "They're coming!" Mark cried, glancing back into the darkness outside like a wounded animal. All thoughts of fear flooded away for a moment as Jake felt a spark of hope ignite within him. Together, they could fight whatever lay ahead. But as he turned to face Mark, the cloaked figure's expression morphed, their grin stretching grotesquely wide. "Too late," they whispered ominously, and just like that, the air around them crackled with impending doom. "What do you mean too late?" Jake shouted, grasping for clarity amidst the chaos. But the figure was gone, melted back into the shadows, leaving only a knowing laugh that faded with the echoes of thunder. "What did you see, Jake? What was that?" Mark's voice trembled with urgency. Jake opened his mouth to explain, but the words caught in his throat as the lights flickered again. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed something moving beyond the glass door. Several figures stood just out of sight, watching intently. "Mark, we need to." The power cut out completely again, plunging the gas station into pitch blackness once more. He felt the icy grip of fear tighten around him, but now it was mingled with growing determination. The darkness encroached, holding secrets that demanded to be uncovered. But was he ready to face the truth? A sound creaked from behind them, a low growl that made Jake's skin crawl. "Whatever you do, don't look back." What waited in the shadows? The air was thick with apprehension as Jake glanced at Mark, their eyes reflecting the flickering lights overhead. Silent questions hung in the charged space. What was lurking just beyond the gas station's fragile walls? They moved closer together, fighting to gather any sense of control in a world turned upside down. "Did you see anything outside?" Jake's voice broke the tenuous silence, a tremor giving away the raw fear beneath. Mark shook his head, drenched hair sticking to his forehead, but the panic mirrored in his wide eyes told a different story. "No. Just figures, shadows. They don't look right, Jake. We need to barricade the door." His words rushed out like a desperate prayer, each syllable laced with urgency. Before Jake could respond, the lights flickered again, casting the room into strobing flashes. With each burst, the figures outside became clearer, grotesque shapes twisted and bent tall, with impossibly long arms and faces that melted into darkness. "Shit!" Jake wheeled around, his instincts screaming for them to secure the store. The sound of low growls intensified, a chorus of otherworldly murmurs that clawed at his sanity. He grabbed a nearby shelf, moving it in front of the door as Mark hurried to help him. "Why didn't we lock that door? What were we thinking?" Mark's voice was hoarse, punctuated by urgency as they slid the shelf into place, the wooden surface creaking as if protesting against the weight of dread. "Just get the other stuff," Jake yelled, pointing to a stack of soda crates lined against the corner. Mark rushed to hoist one, and they both pushed it against the flimsy glass, the shrill clattering echoing in the stillness that dominated their surroundings. The growling morphed into what sounded like laughter, a faint echo that sent chills through Jake's bones. He turned to face the origin of the sound, his breath hitching as shadows writhed across the floor, spiraling toward them. Then, the lights above died completely, plunging them into a pitch-black abyss. The suffocating silence seemed to press against Jake, filling his lungs with dread. "Mark? You okay?" I can't see." Mark's voice trembled in the darkness, and the sheer panic in it made Jake's heart race faster. A flash of lightning momentarily lit the room, and in that heartbeat, Jake saw the outline of a figure, leaning against the far wall. It was just a flash, but it left a heavy weight in Jake's chest. Something was dangerously close, circling them like a predator stalking its prey. "Jake, I can't take this. We need to get out." Mark's voice turned frantic, the dark trapping them in a snare of terror. "No way. There are too many." Jake was cut off as the unmistakable sound of shuffling feet inched closer. It was a symphony of whispers entwined with sinister laughter, wrapping around them like a vine, squeezing tighter with every second. "Remember what that figure said, they'll come for you. It's like they know we're here." Jake's voice fell to almost a whisper, the weight of realization crashing down on him. Suddenly, the power surged back to life, illuminating the gas station with a harsh glare. But what greeted them made Jake's stomach drop. The figures outside had moved right up to the glass door, their eyes gleaming with an unsettling malignance as they pressed their faces against the window, grinning. Jake turned to Mark, panic rising. "What do they want? Why do they look like that?" Mark's face was pale, disbelief creeping into his features. "I don't know, Jake, but I think they might be us." Before Jake could ask him to elaborate, a knock vibrated through the front door. The hollow sound echoed ominously, and Jake felt his heart stutter, an urgent warning in his chest. "Open it!" a voice called, smooth as silk yet dripping with malice. Both boys exchanged horrified glances. Who are you?" Jake croaked, gripping the edge of the countertop, half expecting a response. "Let us in," the voice purred, a chorus of shadows rhythmically responding. "We know the truth. You're one of us now." A different sound, a low growl, rolled through the gas station once again, and with it all the air seemed to disappear. What other truths lay hidden in the dark? Behind that door, what pair of eyes waited to pull them into the night? Jake's heart raced as the implications of those words settled in. "You're one of us now." The phrase echoed like a drum in his mind. What did it mean? He glanced at Mark, whose eyes were wide with raw fear. They could feel the entities pressing against the glass, their distorted faces blurring with shadows. "We have to," Jake began, but he stopped when another series of knocks thundered on the door, rhythmic and unyielding, each sound a dark promise reverberating through the gas station. "Maybe we could distract them." Mark's voice quivered, but there was a flicker of determination breaking through. "We could make a run for it. The back entrance might still be clear." "Are you insane?" Jake shot back. "They're right outside. We need to figure out what they want first." His mind raced. Were these monsters once human? The thought crawled under his skin like spiders, chilling him to the bone. Then the voice came again, seductively low, weaving through the tension. "Open the door, boys. Come join us. It's better on this side." Mark clutched Jake's arm, eyes brimming with desperation. "If we do nothing, they'll get in anyway. We have to try." Before Jake could retort, the lights flickered once more. In that brief moment of illumination, their world was turned upside down. He saw the shadows stretching into twisted forms, their limbs wavering as if barely tethered to reality. The soft murmur of the entities escalated into sinister laughter, swelling like a tide. The sound clawed at Jake's sanity. He felt his willpower slipping through his fingers, just as darkness descended again. The flickering lights were taunting, forcing him to confront a decision he dreaded. "Boys, the clock is ticking," the voice insisted, silkily sinister. "Let us in. You might find truth more alluring than ignorance." "Jake, we need." Mark's words were cut off as a loud crash startled them. The sound emanated from the back of the station, rattling the shelves and sending registered gas canisters rolling across the floor. "Did you hear that?" Jake's voice was a whisper, his instincts on high alert. What was back there? Another creature, or worse, a way to escape. "Come on," Mark urged, darting toward the back. Adrenaline surged through Jake as he followed close behind, hurrying past the flickering light, dread stacking on his shoulders. As they reached the door to the storage area, they paused to listen. There were shuffling noises, punctuated by a soft, satisfied chuckle. Jake felt cold sweat run down his spine. "Do we really want to see what's in there?" he whispered, wanting nothing more than to run. But Mark had already opened the door, leading with trepidation. A dim light from a flickering bulb barely illuminated an array of grim supplies. But what made Jake's stomach drop was the sight in the corner, too familiar, too distorted. A cracked mirror reflected his face, but through the jagged shards, another silhouette glided behind him, faceless but echoing his every move. "Jake!" Mark's voice trembled, pulling him back to reality. The gas station grew colder as shadows pooled around their feet. He darted a glance at the door, still ominously sealed, as he felt the presence edging closer, inching behind him. "Open the door." The voice maintained its seductive chant, now accompanied by something more sinister, a clawing sound, raw and desperate. "Let us go now," Jake yelled, his heart hammering like a wild drum. They'd either find escape or face what wanted to claim them, but he refused to stand idle. Together, they dove into the recesses of the storage room, hoping to find an exit, an answer, anything but the inevitable. But as the shadows swirled and coiled like smoke around them, an understanding struck Jake: whatever lurked within the dark might be waiting for something more than just entry. Just as the first glimpse of escape came into view, a loud crash broke the silence behind them, and Mark's face blanched. "What was that?" Mark whispered, his voice trembling with terror. Jake turned, dread pooling in his stomach. "Whatever is outside, it's inside now," a low growl echoed, pulling them deeper into the darkness, tightening the trap. As their breaths quickened, the figures closed in on them, shapes flickering against the walls, merging with shadows. The door slammed shut behind them with a finality that felt like a sentence. They were trapped, and whatever truth resided in the gas station was leaping from the unknown, ready to claim its next victims. Could they confront the darkness, or were they doomed to become just another lost echo in the gas station's history? The shadows twisted around Jake and Mark like serpents, coiling tighter with each passing moment. Panic flooded through Jake's veins as a sense of impending doom pressed against him. The low growl reverberated in the small storage room, vibrating through his bones. What had they awakened? Mark's breathing hitched. "We need to find a way out. Now." Jake nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. They turned, their eyes scanning the darkened room. In the corners, crates and abandoned supplies stood as silent witnesses to their desperate plight. The dim light flickered above, barely fighting off the enveloping darkness that seemed alive, eager for their fear. "Over there." Mark pointed to a grimy window at the far end of the room, its glass clouded with grime. "If we can get to it." Just as they made a move toward it, the door behind them shook violently. The thumping sound echoed, sending shards of fear deep into Jake's heart. "Back to the corner," Jake shouted, pulling Mark with him. They pressed against the wall, hearts racing, eyes wide. The growl grew louder, now mixed with a chorus of voices, beckoning, taunting them. "Friends, let us in, we only want to play." The reason for their terror became clearer with every pulse of the darkness. These were no mere shadows, they were echoes of something lost, remnants of lives once lived, twisted into longing specters. Did they truly want to play, or did they hunger for the warmth of life? The thought made Jake shudder. "Jake, what do we do?" Mark's voice trembled, teetering on the brink of despair. I don't know," Jake said, clenching his fists. "But we can't lose hope. We just have to think. Suddenly, the flickering light went out completely. It plunged them into a suffocating blackness. Jake's pulse quickened as he inhaled the stagnant air, dread wrapping around him like a vice. They were blind, trapped with the lurking horrors, their senses heightened but powerless. "Hey!" Mark yelled into the void, his voice a stark contrast against the brewing despair. "Is there anyone else there? Anyone who can help us?" The response was chilling. A soft giggle drifted from the shadows, wrapping around Mark's words like a malevolent embrace. "Help? There is no help here. Only us. Shut up." Jake snapped, filling the air with defiance against the creeping dread. "We want to play your games." The laughter intensified, echoing through the empty storage room, propelling shivers down Jake's spine. Then he felt a shift in the atmosphere, the very air thickening as if some invisible force was pushing against him, suffocating his resolve. "Mark, we have to move." Jake lunged for the direction of the window, adrenaline spurring him on. But Mark held him back. "Wait. Listen." Mark exclaimed, his voice straining against the fear. What if they— But before he could finish, the door exploded open, flinging itself against the wall with a resounding crash. A gust of frigid wind tore into the room, swirling around them. Figures poured in, grotesque and fluid, shades of reality warped into something terrifying. The whispers filled the air, clawing at Jake and Mark's fraying sanity. "Join us, it's so much better." Jake's breath hitched. There were dozens of them. He could see shadows reaching for him, fingers twisted and longing. The memories of laughter they once knew twisted into something dark and sinister. "No!" he shouted, shaking his head violently. "We're not going to let you take us." But as they edged closer, Jake felt his legs weaken. The shadows held a magnetic pull that he couldn't resist, tugging him toward the dark with promises of forgotten truths. "Mark!" He grabbed his friend's arm, desperation echoing in his voice. "We can't give in to them." In a moment of clarity, Jake noticed something glimmering on the floor, a flashlight, abandoned and flickering weakly. It was a beacon of hope in the overwhelming darkness. "Get to that light," Jake urged, pointing towards it. With a shared nod, they darted for the flashlight, the entity's menacing whispers growing louder as they chased after the radiance flickering to life. Would it be enough to fend off the shadows as they reached for them, or would the truth hidden within drown them in despair? Just as Jake's fingers grasped the cold metal of the flashlight, the space around them pulsated, the shadows howling with frustration. In that moment, he understood confronting the darkness meant revealing their deepest fears. "Ready?" he asked Mark breathlessly, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. Mark's firm grip on his shoulder brought him a reassuring comfort. "Together." But as Jake flicked the flashlight on, illuminating a path, he realized the chilling truth facing the darkness wouldn't just challenge their fears. It would expose the hidden truths they had both tried to bury, and somewhere in that unforgiving realm, a sinister voice whispered, "Are you ready for the truth?" As the light cut through the shadows, revealing horrors beyond imagination, Jake and Mark braced themselves for a confrontation they could never escape. The beam of light shot across the room, illuminating the chaos swirling around them. For a brief moment, the shadows shrank back, their twisted forms seeping into the darkness as if burned by the light. Jake's heart raced, hope flaring for just a heartbeat. "Keep it steady," Mark yelled, his eyes wide with fear and determination. Jake focused the flashlight, trying to pierce through the murky air filled with despair. The echoes of the laughter morphed, each taunt now tinged with rage. "You cannot escape the truth." A voice howled, a jarring pitch that clawed at Jake's sanity. "What truth?" Jake challenged, though his voice trembled. "What do you want from us?" As if answering his question, the shadows shifted, creating a distorted silhouette of a familiar figure. Jake's breath caught in his throat. It was his younger self, a ghostly reflection stained with anguish. "No, no," Jake whispered, backing away, his heart dropping. The figure pointed, its finger a lament of lost innocence, before it morphed into something grotesque. "You left us behind. We just wanted to play." The voice was a cacophony of dread, each word tearing at the seams of Jake's composure. Mark's grip on his shoulder tightened, grounding him. "Don't look at it. Keep the light on it," he urged, his voice breaking slightly. Jake turned the beam, forcing himself to push away the image of his past. Instead, other shadows began to take shape, forming twisted caricatures of his friends and family, all the faces he had lost or abandoned. Each shimmer of flesh told the stories he thought he'd buried. "Jake," they pleaded in unison, their voices a haunting chorus. "Why did you leave us?" "No!" he roared, swinging the light wildly to drive them back. "I'm here. I didn't leave anyone." But the shadows crept closer, and the overwhelming guilt flooded him. It soaked through his resolve, whispering insidiously about the choices he made. Each whisper stung like a slap. Jake's knees weakened, memories flooding in, jagged shards of regret piercing through his heart. Beside him, Mark's face twisted in anguish, his own dark past surfacing. "This isn't real. Fight it!" Mark shouted, desperate to keep the shadows at bay, but even he was faltering. All around them, the specters began to merge, forming a monstrous visage that loomed over them. "They need you, Jake. They need you to remember," the twisted figure of his childhood friend crooned, a sickly sweet tone that nearly broke him. The words sank into him like poisoned honey, and for a heartbeat, he hesitated. Jake swallowed hard, feeling the crack in his armor deepen. What if it is true? What if I did forget them? No. Mark thrust his hand into the beam of light, forcing Jake back to focus. You can't let them win. Fight it. Remember the good times, the laughter. Not this. Jake's vision blurred, emotions thrumming in his chest. Suddenly, a surge of defiance sparked within him. You're wrong. He yelled into the chaos, voice resonating louder now, bolstered by his friend's urging support. I am not my regrets. I won't give in. With that, he directed the beam straight at the monstrous shadows, pushing with all his might. The light intensified, illuminating the room and forcing the shadows to retreat. The whispers turned into wails, disintegrating into the air, leaving behind nothing but echoes of their pain. Then, with a gut-churning lag, something solid pushed through the lingering shadows, a door he hadn't noticed before. Old and splintered, it seemed like the only way out. Jake, let us go. Mark urged, already moving toward it. But before they could make a break for the door, the ground trembled. More figures coalesced from the corners of the room, their eyes hollow and desperate. You can't leave us. They shrieked, their voices slicing through the air. Jake's heart sank. The doubt crept back in, but as Mark reached for the handle, Jake felt the strength of their bond. We will not be afraid, he declared, gripping the flashlight as if it were a lifeline. They'd already survived the agonizing unveiling of their past, now they had to confront the barrier between them and freedom. On 3. Mark shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. 1, 2, 3. They pushed the door wide open, but just as they stepped forward, the shadows lunged one last time. Were they finally breaking free, or were they doomed to be consumed by the darkness forever? Jake couldn't tell. All he knew was that they had to charge ahead. The only thing lighting their way was the fractured hope that held the promise of deliverance. But he could almost hear the shadows, whispering, you think you've escaped, but your journey has only just begun. Where would the darkness lead them next? The door swung open with a slow creak, revealing a dimly lit corridor stretching into the unknown. A dank chill seeped through, and for a moment, time felt frozen. The shadows behind them shrieked, a cacophony tinged with desperation and fury. Run! Mark shouted, shoving Jake forward. The echoes of the tortured spirits clawed at their heels, urging them back into the darkness. Instinct took over, propelling them down the corridor as the wall of shadows surged behind them, relentless and hungry. With every step, Jake's heart thundered. The flashlight flickered, the beam sputtering as if mirroring his fading confidence. It won hold. He gasped, panic leaking into his voice. Sweat stung his eyes, mixing with the adrenaline that coursed through his veins. Just keep moving. Mark pulled ahead, his focus razor-sharp. The hallway widened, leading into an expansive, cavernous room that felt alive, breathing in the whispers of the past. The walls were rough-hewn stone, slick with moisture. Faded photographs hung crooked, their subjects long lost to time, faces no longer recognizable, yet achingly familiar. Where are we? Jake breathed, slowing reluctantly, as if the room were a memory flashing before his eyes. Somewhere we shouldn't be, Mark murmured, glancing back, the shadows still surging forward in desperate pursuit. Suddenly, a flicker caught Jake's attention. A movement in the corner of the room, something was shifting. His heart raced as he turned, drawing the beam closer. The light caught an old gas pumping station sign, rusting and half buried under dust. I know this place. Jake's voice cracked. This is the one from the nightmares. The gas station my dad owned. His past loomed larger than ever, almost tangible, layered in guilt and nostalgia. Don't drift, man. Focus. Mark's tone cut through the haze of emotions threatening to pull Jake under. Their breaths were ragged as they stumbled deeper into the room, each footstep echoing with unsettling finality. The shadows swirled with intent, and the atmosphere thickened, the remnants of long-buried darkness clawing their way to the surface. From the far end of the room, a voice resonated, deep and echoing. Jake. It was soft, almost seductive, wrapping around him like a shroud. The shadows pulsed, shaping into a figure his father. Dad? Jake gasped, unable to suppress the tremor in his voice. He stepped forward, mesmerized. Is it really you? But the twisted features that formed were anything but a comforting visage. Anguish seeped from the distorted mouth, the voice now cold and accusing. You ran away, Jake. You abandoned us. You think you can just escape? No. Jake stammered, frozen in place as memories crashed over him like a tide. The guilt surged anew, drenching him, a weight he thought he'd cast off. He could hear the laughter of his childhood friends, the late-night conversations with his father, each moment fortified by the shadows now lurching toward him. Fight it. Mark yelled, desperation spilling from his voice. You are stronger than this. Jake shook his head, the darkness taunting him. Am I? He whispered, trembling under the weight of the shadowed figure. What if this is my truth? What if I can't escape? Suddenly, the lights overhead flickered violently, plunging the chamber into a darkness that pressed down on them like a physical force. A terrifying cacophony rose, as if the shadows were celebrating his despair, growing stronger, more powerful with each fleeting moment of doubt. Jake grabbed the flashlight tighter, breathing deeply. I want to let you have me. He shouted, pushing forward with sheer will. Together. Mark cried, summoning every ounce of courage as he stood by Jake's side, light in hand, illuminating the grotesque figure that warred against their resolve. Jake placed one foot in front of the other, grounding himself in the man he had become, not the boy he had once been. They charged forward, not away. Together, they aimed the beam of light straight at the heart of the shadow. That's it. Mark yelled, his voice fierce and unwavering. But the figure of Jake's father roared back, darkness curling around him. You can't escape the past. It will consume you. Just as they lunged for the figure in a frenzied effort to break free, the ground beneath them shifted, threatening to swallow them whole. With a crash, the floor split open, sending both Jake and Mark plummeting into a void, their screams swallowed by the darkness, the shadows enveloping them like a shroud of despair. What awaited them below? Would they finally confront the darkness that had haunted them, or would they be consumed in its depths indefinitely? The pull of the abyss tugged at their very souls, promising revelations and horrors yet unseen. The descent felt endless, the sensation of falling paralyzing. Cold tendrils of darkness snaked around them, wrapping tighter as they plummeted. Jake's stomach twisted. "Mark!" he screamed, panic slicing through the silence. The air turned thick, almost solid, suffocating him. Just as despair clawed its way to the surface, a jarring impact jolted them back to reality. They landed hard on what felt like rotting wood. Rubbing his elbows, Jake squinted into the oppressive darkness, his flashlight flickering back to life like a dying ember. "Where are we?" Mark wheezed, his breath heavy with shock. Jake scanned their surroundings. They were in what appeared to be the basement of the gas station, littered with relics from the past, old fuel canisters, rusted tools, faded company logos peeled away by time. The walls bowed inward, mesmerized shadows darting about as if dancing in the depths of despair. Maybe this is a way to confront it?" Jake murmured, self-doubt creeping in anew. "All these memories, the past focus, Jake." Mark snapped, shaking him. "The shadows are powerful here. We can't let them back in." Suddenly, a whistle pierced the silence, a low, mocking sound that echoed around them. Both boys froze. "Did you hear that?" Jake whispered, his heart racing again. Yeah, Mark's voice faded, filled with dread, the shadows shifted in response, swirling like a dark tempest. And there, in the corner, something emerged, an apparition, its form darting in and out of visibility, like a mirage taunting them. Jake, the voice was a twisted echo of his father's, laced with anguish. It was somehow familiar yet obscured by resentment. "Not this again!" Mark shouted, stepping forward, flashlight beam aimed at the figure. The room recoiled slightly, shadows retracting at the light's touch. "Face me, son." The figure dissolved and formed again, each appearance more grotesque than the last. "You left me. You think you can escape your past by hiding? It will consume you." "I didn't run away," Jake shouted, anger rising like a storm. "I was just a kid." "You don't understand." "I understand," the figure hissed, eyes burning bright through the darkness. "You abandoned your responsibility. You're a coward." "No. I didn't abandon. I was scared." Jake felt hot tears prick at his eyes, the suffocating weight of guilt pressing down. "Every day I thought about you. I just wanted to forget the pain." With every word, shadows swelled and pulsed around them, darkness reaching for Jake as if to pull him into an abyss of regret. "Don't let it take you," Mark shouted, swinging the flashlight wildly. The beam flickered, and for a split second, Jake glimpsed his own reflection in the figure's contorted face, fear and pain bleeding into one. Instinct kicked in. Summoning courage, Jake pushed against the suffocating hopelessness. "I won't let you do this to me. I won't let you drag me down." Together, with Mark's unwavering resolve, they advanced. With each step, their united strength illuminated the monstrous figure, forcing it to recoil. But just as they felt the tide shifting, the walls began to pulse, the basement vibrating. A low, rumbling growl erupted from deep within the shadows, a sound full of menace. "You think light can banish me? Your fear fuels my power. I will not disappear." Chains descended from the ceiling, heavy and rusted, slithering through the air like serpents determined to drag them into the depths. "Run!" Mark yelled, as the chains snaked for their legs. Jake felt the chain wrap around his ankle, the cold metal seeping into his skin, dragging him back. "Mark!" he cried, as the shadows clawed for him. Just then, the darkness roared, a cacophony that twisted his insides, drowning out every rational thought. They were trapped, spiraling in a void with shadows claiming their truths, threatening to consume them whole. As the shadows threatened to pull them apart, a sudden burst of light flared from deep within Jake's heart, moments of clarity sparking memories, his father's laughter, his mother's embrace. "Let go of the past," he shouted, summoning the resolve rising inside him. "It doesn't define who I am anymore." But just as Jake pulled free of the chains that bound him, the floor trembled violently. "Jake!" Mark's voice was lost in the tremors, shadows rising with a violent thirst. "We need to find a way out now." Before Jake could respond, the walls began to shift once more, a new darkness emerging to swallow them. Where would they go from here? Would breaking free of the past be enough to save them, or would it only lead them deeper into the heart of the shadow? Eager to find answers, they charged forth only to meet another layer of the night's unfolding horrors. Jake and Mark stumbled forward, adrenaline coursing through their veins. The moment the walls shifted, they felt the ground beneath them pulse, the sensation almost alive. Shadows warped into grotesque shapes, and a whisper of something ancient slid through the air, chilling Jake to his core. The flashlight flickered again, threatening to succumb to the darkness. "Stay close," Jake urged, gripping Mark's arm tightly. They had to keep moving. Each step felt heavy, the shadows tugging at them as if the very floor wanted to drag them down into its depths. "Where do we go?" Mark's voice rose above the cacophony of whispers that seeped from the shadows. Fear danced in his eyes, but even in their panic, there was a glimmer of resolve. I don't know. We just need to get out," Jake replied, scanning the dark corners for any sign of an exit, but there were only more shadows waiting to clamp down on them. The basement felt like a labyrinth with no end, every direction held more questions than answers. Suddenly, a low hum began to resonate through the walls, a melody infused with loss, like a lullaby sung from the depth of sorrow. Jake's heart raced as the sound wrapped around their minds, pulling at something deeply buried within him. Memories jolted forward, the last time his family had all been together, laughter echoing in their home. "Jake, snap out of it!" Mark shouted, waving a hand in front of Jake's face. They couldn't afford to get lost in the shadows' traps. Mark was right, there was no time to linger. "They're trying to distract us," Jake's voice trembled as he regained focus. "We need to break through whatever this is." Mark turned the flashlight towards the growing hum, and what they saw made them both stagger back. Out of the darkness rose an enormous figure, more sinister than any nightmare they'd ever experienced, its face shifting through countless visages of impending doom, a scream in itself. The lights flickered wildly at its approach. "Welcome back," the figure rasped, echoing with rage. "You thought you could escape me? I've waited too long, and I will take back what belongs to me." Jake felt the initial relief of fear morph into a suffocating dread. This was at the culmination of every shadow he'd fought within himself. He felt the floor tremble beneath him again, a warning, or perhaps a countdown. "Mark, we have to stand together," Jake shouted, panicking as the shadows coalesced between them and the figure, creating a wall of darkness that threatened to crush them. "Think of the light. Think of home." The figure snarled, a sharp laugh slicing through the darkness. "Home? You have no home left. You forget, the past has a way of reminding you what you tried to bury." Jake could feel the chains tightening around his heart, the weight of unacknowledged memories threatening to crush him like the specter towering before them. "Mark! We need to fight this together," he cried, clenching his fists. "Remember those moments, the times we were strong?" Mark nodded, determination hardening his features. "We can do this. Together." They stood side by side, a flicker of light igniting between them. Drawing strength from their bond, they faced the looming figure in defiance, words of unity bubbling forth in unison. "We are more than what you made us. We choose our path." At that moment, the resonance of their voices erupted into a light blinding as the shadows screeched in agony. But then, from the depths of the shadows, a piercing scream rose, threatening to drown them out. "Fools! You think you're free?" The figure lunged, propelling darkness toward them, consuming all light and hope. The moment stretched, fear snared in their throats like a vice. Just as they thought the darkness would swallow them whole, Jake remembered an old story his father once told, something about finding the heart of the darkness to defeat it. "Mark, it's right there." He pointed toward the figure's chest, where the shadows converged, rich and thick. If we strike at its heart, we may have a chance. Jake's hands shook, brimming with desperation but also newfound courage. They moved forward, their breath hitching in expectation as the shadow surged before them, but as they advanced, new shadows crawled from the walls, shifting and fluttering, blocking their path, and menacing whispers echoed, "You're too late. You can't undo what has been done." With every ounce of strength left in them, they charged, but what awaited them in the heart of that darkness would redefine their understanding of truth and the path to salvation. What haunted truths would they uncover before it was all too late? With one final thrust of courage, Jake and Mark surged forward, determined to reach the heart of the malevolent figure that loomed before them. The oppressive darkness hissed with malice, but their friendship shone like a beacon, lighting their path through the endless shadows. Ignoring the cacophony of doubt echoing around them, Jake locked eyes with Mark. "No matter what happens, we face this together," he yelled, their voices intertwining against the chaos. They pressed on, the air thickening with both fear and resolve. As they neared the figure, the shadows flickered ominously. The grotesque face shifted into memories Jake had long tried to forget, faces of friends lost, family abandoned, moments of cowardice. "You cannot escape what you've buried. Face your past," it cried, the voice a sickening mix of accusation and despair. "No. You don't define me," Jake shouted, his heart swelling with defiance. The rusted chains of regret clanged loudly in his mind, but they couldn't trap him anymore. Not now. Deep inside, he felt something stir, a forgotten strength that grew closer with each heartbeat. The overwhelming flood of guilt tried to crush him again, but he pushed back, clear memories of laughter and love breaking through the noise. Mark's fierce resolve erupted into a chant. "Together. Together. Together." The words echoed off the cavern-like walls, resonating powerfully through their spirits. The growing sense of unity shielded them against the tidal wave of darkness threatening to consume them. They reached the shadowy figure. Can you imagine? For just a moment, a flicker of light danced between them and the darkness. Their hands met almost instinctively, the flickering flashlight connecting to memories that surged around them, a swirling pool of love, joy, and laughter they fought to reclaim. "The truth?" Jake bellowed, summoning every ounce of strength. "The truth is not my failures but the love I still carry." The heartbeat of hope pulsed brighter, the shadows shrank back as Mark joined in. "And we choose to be stronger. We embrace our memories, not hide from them." The monstrous figure let out a howling wail, twisting as if the very essence of the shadows threatened to dissolve. Each pulse of light sent shimmers of warmth rippling through the darkness, revealing glimpses of the souls that lingered. Echoes of laughter erupted from the shadows, morphing into a symphony of memories long forgotten. The light grew more radiant, pushing back the despair, illuminating the cavern and forcing the figure into a vortex of frantic whispers. "No. You'll be trapped forever," it screamed, reaching out. Jake and Mark pressed on, a united front against the consuming night. "We reclaim our truth," they shouted as they lunged toward the core of the figure's darkness, their combined light exploding outward. A brilliant flash consumed the room, the shadows recoiling as they were forced to dissipate, scattering like smoke in the wind. Their voices faded, overwhelmed by the surge of light, and then silence. The gas station's basement faded around them. Jake and Mark found themselves lying on the cold concrete floor of the gas station, flooded with soft, golden light pouring through cracks in the ceiling. The weight of the cocooning darkness melted away, leaving them breathless yet rejuvenated. They shot up, eyes darting around, half expecting the shadows to return, but the room was clear, the flickering fluorescent lights buzzed gently overhead. "For real this time?" "Did we do it?" Mark asked, disbelief coloring his voice. "Yeah," Jake said, glancing around. "We faced them." Outside, the night sky sparkled with stars, the world around them alive with possibility. Pain lingered, but not as a prison, rather, it now felt like a reminder of who they were. They had fought through their darkest fears and emerged stronger. "Let us never do that again," Mark chuckled nervously, wiping his brow. Agreed, Jake laughed lightly but felt a weight lift from him. He turned to face his friend, gratitude spilling through every word. Thanks for fighting beside me. Always, man. Just next time, maybe we work a regular shift. He smirked, a sense of lightness wrestling against the remnants of tension. Jake nodded, and as they smiled, a profound understanding settled between them. They were not alone, and facing their past would only lead to a brighter tomorrow. Together, they stepped out of the gas station into the crisp Montana air, shadows of the past behind them, hopes of the future lighting their way. This final chapter of their journey was truly just the beginning, but you know what? This is not where the excitement ends. You need to subscribe now. Stay with us for more incredible stories like this one. And smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us create more content just for you. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and reactions. We want to hear theories about what you think happened too. And don't wait even one more second, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support, because together we can keep the stories alive.